Hi lacrosse fans, welcome back to episode number 27 of the Sticks and Picks Lacrosse podcast presented by Lacrosse Unlimited. Lacrosse Unlimited has provided the best equipment, apparel, and lacrosse footwear since 1990. Be sure to check out their website at lacrosseunlimited.com for all your lacrosse needs. I'm your host, Will Petchnig, alongside co-host Jake Fox. In today's episode, we talk to New York Riptide player and Loyola University alum Ryan Fournier. He talks about growing up playing for the Gloucester Griffins Minor Lacrosse Association, his university career at Loyola, and what it's like to live out his childhood dream to play in the National Lacrosse League. He also talks about what he's up to in Tulsa, Oklahoma with Callum Crawford and their Impulse Lacrosse Club. He grew up playing lacrosse in Ottawa, Ontario for the Gloucester Griffins Minor Lacrosse Association. He's a Minto Cup champion with the Six Nations Arrows in 2015. He then went on to be a two-time captain at the Hill Academy and then committed to Loyola University in Maryland, becoming one of the top 2A long stick midfielders in college lacrosse. He was the 12th overall pick in the talented 2017 NLL draft, going to Vancouver. He is currently a member of the New York Riptide of the National Lacrosse League and a member of the Connecticut Hammerheads of the Major League Lacrosse. Please welcome to the podcast, Ryan Fournier.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
This is a first for us. This is our first semi-live podcast. So I've been living in Oklahoma for the last 2.5 months, living with Ryan. So we're actually side by side on the couch as we do this and at home. And Will's back in Canada.
Yeah, crazy times for sure with all this COVID stuff. It's about time it kind of ends, and it's nice to see the Air Force doing so well, and we're excited to have you on here.
Appreciate it.
So we're gonna start get right into things here and kind of talk about how you got involved in the game of lacrosse. I know it wasn't the biggest sport in Ottawa back when we were younger, but how'd you get involved with the game?
I got involved pretty early. I think I was 4 when I started playing. But just, small town community. I think the Soviets, for those who know who they are, got me involved, and I picked up a stick at 4 years old, never looked back. Shout out to the Denoyers for being my first coach ever. And then, just kept playing from there. Loved it from day one.
It's funny because you and me have talked about Ottawa Lacrosse a lot. It's changed a lot since, especially, well, you left a little earlier than I did, but we look back at Ottawa Lacrosse now and when you played, what are some of the big things that you've noticed? I know you haven't been around a lot, but you've noticed a big development, I think.
Yeah, the biggest, obviously there's some boys that are getting some notoriety and well-deserved now. But from even looking back further, when I was in minor, novice and stuff like that, I mean, the lacrosse was very low quality. And now I think starting from, I don't even know what the lowest age group is now, but novice and Bantam, all the associations are developing high quality teams. So it's not just guys who stick with it, who end up choosing lacrosse over hockey and end up going through the junior ranks and leaving Ottawa that are finding success now. It's actually everybody in the associations as a whole that are really becoming competitive. And I think that's the biggest difference is from front to back, from the youngest to the oldest, all the way through. There's some good competitive lacrosse in Ottawa now.
When you were playing for Gloucester, you guys were mostly B and C, kind of like us, right? CD.
My last year in minor, I was the last place in C and in provincials. We should have been D, but our 2 team was D, so we weren't allowed.
No, it's a little different now where most Ottawa teams are now A and B. What were some of the coaches you had growing up that kind of had a big influence on your game today in minor?
I mean, I think everything, everybody. I think every situation you're at, you can take something through it. And, I mean, obviously I didn't quit at any point playing, so every coach had some kind of an impact, whether that's, pushing me more physically. I'm looking back to, someone like Coach Hartley, who literally, pre-game, pre-practice, off-ice training, every practice. And it made us work harder, right? And that kind of became my MO as I got older. So, you got to shout out at him too. But then you look, Steph Collins and the Denoyers, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but I think the 3 of us had some of the same coaches growing up, but they were the ones showing up and putting practice on. So I got to take the cap.
One thing that you did a lot too that really I think you said you were the second Gloucester player to make a Team Ontario team, right? Something along those lines?
Something along those lines, yeah.
And you played for 5 different teams. You and Will were really kind of like the first kids from the Ottawa region that kind of made that an option. Obviously, me and Aaron Forrester would make it later on, and now we're seeing more and more kids. My brothers played Team Ontario at one point. I know Austin Lamoureux, Isaiah Weeks, I think, have all played Team Ontario at some point. How big of a step was that for your game coming from Ottawa, playing Gloucester, which we've all admitted, and I think anyone who saw lacrosse at that point in Ottawa wasn't a top level, to going to play with that level of guys? How much did that develop your game going forward?
A lot. I honestly think my first Team Ontario experience was in Pee Wee with Coach Keenan. And I was actually in a really bad car accident 2 weeks before the tournament, and that breaking my arm and getting a big scar on my forehead and whatnot. So when I got back in there, they actually brought in another whippy guy to take my spot temporarily if I couldn't play. So by the time I got back, I missed the practices. I missed all the X's and O's. And if you know Coach Keenan, I could coach the PV team, like the NLL team, and so they were all sharp. And so I ended up going out the back door and playing defense for my first national tournament. And that's kind of been my role ever since. So the biggest jump was, one, playing in a different position that I was used to. But 2, getting exposure to those guys who now we have relationships with and we've played with for years. But guys like Devin Shore and Scott Lawton back then, and a whole bunch of guys, that the Richies and stuff like that were just so talented with the ball. And anyways, it was quite a jump.
Will can talk to us too, because I think, Will, you played with him as well. You guys had a whole lot, including yourself, that went hockey from that group.
Yeah, I mean, even in the 95 age group, we had Nick Ritchie, Hunter Garland. There's Brody Milne was a first-round OHL pick. Brandon Robinson, first-round OHL pick. So many guys. I think 5 guys from our Bantam national championship team went in the first round of the OHL draft, and then there was me, the crumb, in the 3rd round. So I was the only one out of those 6 OHL draft picks that came back and played in our midget years. So it was definitely a lot of great hockey players there as well. But I mean, you touched on it great there, Ryan, was saying the experience and the friendships that you meet there, and just opening the door more for Ottawa area lacrosse. I think it's something truly special. And going kind of into that midget year there, you ended up playing junior B as well. Can you kind of talk about that experience in playing junior B as a midget age player?
Yeah, it was something. It was obviously experience playing against some older, bigger boys and whatnot. But the junior B team wasn't too great back then, and my brother was on it, and they had kind of a tough MO going on, and it wasn't huge skill based lacrosse. So I found myself on the bench for a lot of the third periods when it got a little out of hand, but it definitely taught me how to play against some bigger boys. And once you made that jump the next year, for sure, like in the first year junior, it made it a little bit easier.
Do you remember your first junior B game? Who it was against?
I have no idea. No.
You have no?
I do not remember.
Really?
Probably, yeah, that's probably shaking my boots. I don't know.
Because I remember mine, because we kind of went through that same path of started playing junior early, and I think my first one was in Ganawage as a 14-year-old or something like that. It was the scariest thing ever.
Yeah, I remember Brendan O'Neill played for Nepean.
Alex O'Neill, sorry. He came off a pick, and my dad still reminds me to this day. He heard me from the crowd scream like a little girl because he came around this pick to try to hit me and ended up missing and hit the boards. But it was like one of my first games, and he was this monster wearing this, had all these stories about he had the Woody out, and I just was like, oh no, is this across the next level? I don't know if it's for me, but we got over it.
You end up making your jump to junior A the first year of junior eligibility, and you actually went to Akwesasne, which I think was only a 1 or 2 year team. Talk about that experience, going to play on the res and playing with them. I think you played with Lyle, Miles, and a whole bunch of other guys who obviously are big now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I take away is I got to play with some true greats. Like everybody considers Lyle one of the greatest now. He's still playing, which is amazing. But you got to just see that jump in skill and how confident and calm they were with the ball. And I remember Shane Francis playing the point of their power play with all those names with a Woody, and it was just so impressive to see the skill. But a little nervous. I remember doing high kicks in the first day of tryouts for stretching, and I was trying to do it so well. I took myself right off my feet and landed on my ass right in front of everybody else. But yeah, it was quite the experience. I mean, there's nothing like playing the Turtle Dome, so pretty fun.
There's one story that you knew was going to come up, and Will, I don't know if you know this. Ryan was left in Peterborough on a road trip while he was playing with Dr. Sosny. I'll let you kind of tell how that went.
Yeah, we were on like a 3-game road trip. Peterborough, I forget who else. I mean, maybe we had a day off, and then the next day was against Orangeville in Orangeville. So we're on this big long road trip, and it was a late night game. Played against Peterborough. We ended up going to Pizza Hut right after the game for some food. Ended up going to take number 2 in the bathroom when they're paying for it, and I come out and everyone's gone. I thought they were playing a joke. So I start doing laps around the restaurant, a lap around the block, trying to find the bus. Everyone's giggling. They were nowhere to be found. So they ended up just taking off and moving on down to Orangeville. Luckily, I knew some guys on the Peterborough team. I think it was Nate White, Millie, and Wiz all ended up picking me up, and we ended up hitting the town for a night and then staying over with a couple of the guys in their house. And I think somebody, one of the GMs or somebody for Aquasauce was on the way up to Orangeville 2 days later. So they ended up scooping me and ended up making the last trip and playing in the Orangeville game. But it is a story for sure.
After that, obviously Aquasauce was no longer a team, and there was a dispersal draft, and you ended up getting picked up by the Beaches. Again, you're kind of I guess as we go through this, a little bit of a junior suitcase.
Forever.
What was it like playing for the Beaches? Obviously, you had some really good coaches when you were there as well, who came through. And I think, was Clark coach then? When you were
No, it was Brucey Codd, who obviously is amazing, and Merrick Thompson, who was actually my house don at the Hill Academy at the time. So I was living with them. So it just made sense, right? Staying there for the summers. And I know I wanted to play A-ball, and couldn't be doing that at home anymore with Sauce Folding, so it was the next best option, and they ended up taking me and commuting with Merritt back and forth to the game. So that was, my first time that I really got some next level coaching. I had some with Keenan in Ontario and stuff like that, but like full seasons worth with Brucey on the D end, it was something special and definitely a learning curve for me, trying to just pick up the knowledge of the game, but ended up being awesome. Had a great experience out there.
After Toronto, we then come to arguably the biggest junior lacrosse trade in Ottawa history. It's very rare, let alone that Ottawa and the Nepean do anything together at the junior level. It's gone a lot better now, obviously, but back then there was a bitter rivalry. And you were part of, I can't even think of how many pieces were part of that trade. How'd that go down?
I don't know what went the other way, to be honest. It doesn't really matter, but it was I wanted to continue playing high level lacrosse and learning mostly. After 2 years at the Beaches, I just knew I had to continue to learn the game, and with being away at school at that point, coming home and working was kind of necessary for me. So I knew Coach Callum at the time, just Callum, was taking over the junior B team. So I figured, let's jump on there. Somebody that knows the game well, the highest level, that can teach me. So they end up, making the trade, and I end up switching associations for the first time to the Knights and learning from him, which was beneficial for me. Just I wasn't going to go home and play. Just to play. I wanted to keep getting better, as my goals were kind of to continue in lacrosse, and that is the kind of the best option for me at that time.
I think from what I remember, I know Forrester was a part of the trade, Aaron, and I think Justin Kachuk might have been a part of the
Justin
trade.
Kachuk, Ulysses Toulouse, Eric Albert, and I think there's 2 other Nepean kids. I can't think of them right now, but that was it was crazy. And Gloucester, actually, it worked out for both teams. It worked out great. Aaron had a 100-point season, and I think Ulysses had close to a 100-point season there too. And you obviously helped out Nepean tremendously as well. So I think it worked out for both teams.
So that was kind of, I guess, your first introduction to really playing for Callum, becoming buddies with Callum. But you decided after 1 year you wanted to make one last run, and the goal of everyone is to win a Minto. So you actually ended up going to Six Nations. How did you end up in Six? And then tell us about that season and winning the Minto.
I was actually at a little bit of a shindig, a little bit of a party at the time, and I got a late night call from Six saying, asking if I wanted to play. And it was pretty early in the season. I think they were only 4 or 5 games into the season. And wanted me to come down. We had talks the year before, but I committed to going back to Ottawa and playing. So I kind of blew them off that year. And then going and winning the championship in 14. So looking back, it was kind of, But for the 15 year, I was out drinking a little bit and ended up making the call to Callum and just be like, man, like, I don't know if I can turn this down 2 years in a row. Like, I'm really, everyone wants to do it. Everyone wants to go play in Six and take a run at it. So he understood, and I don't know if I was on a 2-way or not, but I might have kept playing B for a little while. But anyways, I ended up making my way down to Six and pulling my hamstring in the first game I played with him, and didn't actually play for him again until I think a couple games before the playoffs, just to get my eligibility in. But I ended up having an awesome time down there, living with some good guys and meeting some new buddies that are around the game, and ended up taking it all over the Peterborough.
Yeah, you beat us in the Ontario finals that year. It's fantastic. You also got actually, I'm not going to mention the fight because I got knocked out. I got knocked out that same game. That was a fun series. One thing that kind of gets forgotten about that series too is the fact that you guys had to wear OHL practice jerseys for a game, which I always love bringing up because I think it's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think we were at Ear Barn and we ended up forgetting our jerseys or something like that. It's just not what you want to be showing up to against a Peterborough team and just starting off on the wrong foot. But hey, we got the job done. I think we only dropped 1 to you guys, and I think we ended up taking most of those fights in that game. So, I'll take it.
Yeah, congrats. You won a Minto.
I remember Ian McKay's quote from that game wearing those OHL jerseys. He said something along the lines of he was so happy he finally got to play a game in the OHL, and I thought that was pretty funny. So we're
Bomber.
Oh, it's Bomber. Perfect. Same thing. We're going to get into a little fun here. We're going to have a word association game. So basically, Jake's going to give you a word, and you got to think of a lacrosse player or someone involved in game lacrosse that first comes to mind.
Ready?
Oh, yeah.
Just a heads up, Ryan, I think, is the first guest who's actually seen these words in advance because Ryan was scared that he wouldn't be able to think of anything on the fly. So we gave him a little heads up.
Not really quick on those, so I needed a little bit.
Ryan's had a 24-hour head start. So first one's GOAT, greatest of all time.
Garrity.
Next one's leader.
Gotta go with Danny Mack, leader right now. Our New Yorker type team just does it different, does it really well.
Next word, sniper. Outside shooter. We're going with sniper.
Dobie, just from a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, or last year, whatever it was, just went off and he just doesn't miss.
Finisher.
Inside. Yeah, shout out to my boy Ryan Lee. Has been killing it ever since he's made it to the league. He was on our Minto team too. Went to the Hill with him as well, so got to know him pretty well. But that last showing in the MLL was just something different, catching, finishing, everything. So I'll say Lee.
Playmaker.
Callum Crawford. No, honestly, he's different. He makes everybody around him better. So yeah, for sure.
Detail oriented.
Actually, an old teammate of mine from Loyola who now coaches at Army, Justin Ward. He was truly one of those coach players. Like, he's probably the only one that I could have guaranteed to be successful in that kind of realm. So Justin Ward.
Water bug.
This is a little different one. I couldn't think of anybody, but I'll say Nisha Moore, if you know who he is from New England. He played on my face-off team a little bit when I was taking faces there, and he was just always getting in there, and
Stone hands.
This is never good. Getting the shout out for Stone hands.
You can't say yourself.
No, hey, I don't want to say that. Pretty close. I'll have to say, and I love him to death, but Brett Manny, my old cat, he's a wonderful human, great player. He just doesn't have the softest hands. So.
Agitator.
Agitator.
Now, this doesn't have to be a specific person that it could be someone that just always got under your skin, or someone who could do that.
If it's under my skin, I'll just say the Porters out west. I have nothing against them as people. I just can't stand them on the floor, but they do their job, and kudos to them. But Tyson Bell is someone who sticks out to me. He's always getting under everyone's skin. You always notice him on the floor too, so he's just doing his job too.
I remember one time playing against when he was with Brampton. We were running to the bench, and all of a sudden it feels like I'm carrying someone, and I turn around and Belsey's grabbing my jersey as I run to the bench. Next word's team.
Team. I don't know. Maybe I'll shout out all my teamos back in the day. We ended up having a consistent group there for a while with, guys like Shane Simpson, Jake Withers, Ryan Keenan, Shanksy, a bunch of guys that just, have all kind of continued to play and are finding success. And it was just always a lot of fun playing with those guys.
And finally, the last word, because it's my favorite word in the English dictionary, like I say every time, jackass.
Jackass.
And it's in the most endearing way.
Yeah. Yeah, love him. Zach Hairwires. He was my roommate in college for a little while, and I do love him. I looked up what jackass means, definition, before the podcast, and I think he could have his picture there. So, Zach Hairwires.
Oh, that's great. We haven't heard that one yet, so that's a new one for us. We're gonna go back to Hill Academy. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but again, being from Ottawa, there wasn't much field lacrosse. I know you were in it more than most guys because a lot of us did the hockey and lacrosse. I know you're doing some hockey too, but you ended up going to the Hill Academy. How'd that become an option for you?
Came an option. I think it ended up being Queener reaching out. I don't know if they knew me from the Ontario circuit or however it happened, however they got my contact, but they ended up reaching out and just asking if I'd like to go. And I never really thought about it at that time, but family was going through some stuff and I just wanted to get out of Ottawa at that point. So once it became an option, I jumped all over it. There was no question. I think they just found me, to be honest.
We talked about it a little bit because obviously I went to the Hill too. We had a little bit, you left the year before I got there.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of crossover with our, obviously Brody, Patrick, those guys were the staples. It's their school. Who were some of the coaches there that really influenced your game and kind of changed you? Because you were at LSM College, but actually you were playing kind of O/2-way midi at the Hill.
Yeah, I went to Loyola as a short stick, the 2-way midi, but Queener was there, and he had a big impact on me because he was a smaller guy too, and I know he had some success at Georgetown. He was kind of just taught me how to kind of play the defensive end while running the floor transition or field, I guess, and playing offense too as a smaller guy, just using my speed, using kind of what you have. You don't have to be just like anybody else, kind of be your own player there. And he was kind of similar to me in that way in style, so he kind of helped me a lot. And obviously living with Merrick Thompson, I got really close with him in the beaches, so he had a big impact on me, but more as a mentor, just as much as a coach. He kind of guided me the right ways going into college and making sure I was all ready to go once I got there. So both those guys had a huge impact on me.
When people think about the Hill, obviously they think of the massive amount of success that players have had coming from there, going to college and going to the pro. If you look at their list, obviously it goes pages and pages deep of players who have had huge impacts. How big of an influence was the Hill for you getting ready for college?
Yeah, I would put it up against any school out there in the world for getting ready for college lacrosse. They make you do the strength and conditioning, and they do it properly. They make you practice every day, and you're practicing against guys, 40, 50 guys that have the same goal in mind and the same kind of path laid out for them. So the talent there pushes you, and everybody's there for the same reason. So it just kind of fosters that kind of atmosphere that you want to be around. So it did everything for me. I thought I got to Loyola more prepared than a lot of guys. Also, taking that PG year there helps too. Getting a little stronger. But yeah, they do an awesome job.
One thing that I think people often forget about you is the fact that you weren't committed to Loyola at the start. You were originally committed to Sacred Heart. So let's go through the entire process of how you originally ended up at Sacred Heart and then how the flip to Loyola ended up coming.
Yeah, I played a couple seasons or summers, I guess, and I don't even think I played the whole summers, but a couple tournaments here and there with Edge. And we had a really strong team. And at the time, we had guys committed everywhere. And I remember Shane Simpson getting committed to UNC. And it was kind of like the last tournament of the summer. And we were going into, I think, our 11th year, grade 11. And I just felt kind of falling behind. And obviously now looking back, coaching and mentoring kids, like I wasn't at all. But when I got the offer from Sacred Heart, financially it was great. And I didn't have to do a PG year. And everybody, coaches, everybody just said, take it. Offers aren't coming. Classes above you are full. I think it was a little bit of misinformation, but a little bit of just excitement. I did go visit. I did like it. I thought it was a great place. I was confident I could have gotten playing time right off the bat, things like that. So I was excited for it. But once the Hill Academy option came up and I knew I was going to go there, I knew I was going to do the post-grad year. It wasn't like more doors open when you go to the Hill Academy. So I basically folded my hand and went back into the deck and see what I could get, and ended up working out for him.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did the Loyola thing come around?
Basically, Brody, I think he took me out of class at one point and had a little combo with me and basically just said, hey, I've been talking to Loyola coaches for you. At that point, Reed Acton had already been there. They were sending Zach Hairwires there. He was still at school at that point with me, but basically said, we got this Tully tournament coming up. They're coming up to see you. Better be ready. So I ended up actually having going off, and I don't say that lightly because I don't go off for goals that often in the field, but I ended up having a really good tournament and committed from that one tournament with them. So they liked what they saw, and it was just that opportunity and again the preparation that kind of Hill does for you that kind of put me in that right spot to make it happen. And without that, obviously they wouldn't have even known who I was. They would have seen me. So they kind of put you in the right spot.
I mean, I'm the first one to admit that I know very little about field lacrosse, but if you have to choose between a Sacred Heart and a Loyola, I think you'd be a little crazy to say no to Loyola with all their history and everything. So now getting into Loyola here, where you were actually a short stick and then you changed to LSM. When did that happen? That happened right away, or did that kind of just you fell into that role?
I going into the season, obviously they came and saw me a little bit more in high school, and they saw me taking face-offs at that point. I think they started to understand who they were actually getting. So once I got there, they had our second poll go down a week before our first game freshman year against Virginia. So I had played the whole fall as a short stick, and guy goes down. I think our number 3 just wasn't going to cut it at that point. And so they just kind of yelled out at practices, anybody play pole? And the year before I tried out for Team Canada with a pole. So I was like, I've done a little bit. They literally stood me at center field, and all the coaches stood beside each other and then whipped ground balls at me, and I picked them up and threw them back and picked them up and threw them back. And I'm like, all right, you're playing LSM next game. And this is a week away. So it was quite the flip, but I ended up doing all right and just running around out there, and I didn't put it down after that. So it ended up working out.
No, it wasn't a bad 4 years for you. 4 years basically as a starter, team captain your senior year, Final Four appearance. I think you guys won, 3 Patriot Leagues out of the 4 years you were there. What were some of the big memories that obviously look back and you see Loyola, and those are kind of things that stand out to you?
Yeah, the Final Four run is definitely, something special. Obviously, just the attention the team was grabbing at that point, and the excitement in the air. And I remember, that was the year that Pat Spencer and Stover came in, and they kind of, a dominant attackman like that, and that goalie that stands on his head kind of changes things for you guys. And I mean, we had some tough games to get to that point. It wasn't like we were just steamrolling teams. We weren't like out of this world great, but we just put it together when it needed to be. I remember going into played Bucknell in the semifinals of the Patriot League and did double OT, and they hit Stover's helmet with a shot and whatever. And it was just it was a tough road to get there. But once we were there, it was just one of those things I'll never forget. Families all making the trip down for the playing Eagle Stadium and stuff like that. So it was pretty special, but that one sticks out for sure.
what was your favorite game on the schedule every year for you at Loyola? What was your big game?
I know I should say Hop right now, but since I went like 2-1 or 3-1 against them or something like that, I can't remember. Just steamrolling them every time. So I never lost to Hopkins when I was on the field. So that one wasn't really huge on my schedule. But I like the Virginia game, to be honest. Virginia was always our first game of the season. So obviously your first game of the season, you get up a little bit. And my first game ever, the first game with a pole actually too, we were down by 9 going into the fourth and ended up coming back and taking the lead. They scored with like a second left and then ended up winning in overtime. So we ended up losing that game, but it was just one of the wildest lacrosse games, not only playing in, but witnessing too. It was my first ever college game with the wrong stick in my hands. And it was just, so after that Virginia game at the start of the year was always just like something, it was just different, it was special.
First off, kids, earmuffs, go fuck yourself. But you ended up being 8th all times in ground balls for Loyola, which obviously anytime you kind of cement yourself in the record books in some sort of way is obviously an honor. What was a big key to you, kind of for kids who might listen to this, to ground balls? I know a lot of it was wing play and stuff like that, but what were some of the keys that you thought made you one of the better players? And I hate kind of pumping your tires here so much. But what made you so good at loose balls in college? What do you think was a big step for you kind of developing that?
Well, that's always kind of been part of my game. It's not like I'm a finesse pretty player out there. I kind of just run and jump and roll and pick up balls and stuff like that. So it's not pretty ever, but I actually didn't know I was 8 belt. It's kind of fun. No, I remember Joe Fletcher. That might not be a household name, but for me it is. He was a senior when I was a freshman. He was All-American, Team USA. He's an amazing defenseman. And he took me aside one time, and I was doing all right, but he just said, hey, one of my secrets is look at the ball. And I know that sounds so silly to say look at the ball, but when there's a scrum and you're on the perimeter, or it's locked up in the face-off guy's stick and you're on the perimeter, or even if you see it bouncing and rolling, if you truly stare at the ball, it'll tell you where it's going. And it sounds silly when I tell a lot of kids that, but it's truly one thing that once you focus in and don't worry about the sticks that are swinging around and don't worry about anybody else and you truly stare at that ball, it just seems to come to you. So that's kind of the one thing I tell anybody.
Yeah, no, that's certainly that's an amazing accomplishment. I think it kind of goes back to your Ottawa days where you had to work for everything that you got, and it's just kind of your hard work's always been there. So we're going to go back to some more fun here with the teammate challenge, and you can throw guys under the bus here if you want. This is usually one of my favorite parts here of all the podcasts. So basically Jake's going to give you a question and you got to think of a teammate who first comes to mind.
Again, he has a heads up for this, just so everyone knows.
It's no advantage here.
Who has the worst style on and off the floor? We'll start with on the floor.
On the floor, so I bet you a lot of people would say me. I mean, I cut my leggings at one point. I wore pink shoes at one point that I didn't think were actually going to be looking pink. But I can't even. Maybe Mac Mitchell. Shout out Mac Mitchell for the worst style on the floor. He's just, shorts don't ever fit, right? I don't know, he's long. Off the floor, I don't know. Maybe I'll throw Suits under the bus because he's always tripping everybody else's suits. So I guess the name Suits too is kind of funny. But yeah, he doesn't have the greatest style in the world either. So I'll defend everybody else.
Least favorite matchup, box and field. So let's start with box lacrosse.
Box, there's so many, man. Dixon, Lyle. I mean, anybody that's big, athletic, can kind of bounce. Has their center of gravity down. Probably Lyle. I think Lyle's the most unguardable human out there. So I'd say him for box. For field, a name that I don't know, some people might know him, but Joe Lacasio. He was a number 1 midi from Maryland for a little while. He's small dude, probably like 5'6", but as fast as lightning with a right and a left. So he's my ultimate terrible matchup, and he stuck it to me a couple times when we played him, and he's in the PLL now, I think.
Who is the most likely man to become president or prime minister that you've played with?
John Brannigan. He's the only, his personality is so outgoing and he's so confident, he's so direct with what he wants and what he says, and he kind of has that high energy to go do it. So I could see Randy making a good push for president.
Biggest prankster.
Biggest prankster. Jay Drapeau. He's an old buddy of mine at Loyola, and he'd always just, you'd find your shoes, when they shouldn't be in, shoelaces tied when you're done, and sticks in the shower and things like that. So he was always just trying to cause some crap.
Best roommate.
Best roommates. Worst roommate would be easier to do.
All right, worst roommate, go.
Buki. No one can sleep with Buki. He's got some pretty good snoring going on, so Buki's up there. Best roommate. I don't know. All my college roommates were pretty good. They kept pretty tidy. Shout out to my rope unit. All my D-middies and poles, we all lived together, and all those guys are pretty awesome.
I honestly expected Gibby, Tyson Gibson.
I love Tyson, but it's been 1 year. I can't give him best roommate. No idea.
Most likely, who would most likely be a good coach if they decide to coach? Someone you can see after their playing career kind of jump into a coaching role and be successful. Yeah, it's got to be somebody that, obviously loves the game and has kind of the X's and O's down. I could see somebody like Ryan Keenan, obviously following his dad's footsteps, but even playing with him, he plays with such kind of a poise and confidence to him, and I think he knows the game better than anything else he does. So I could see, obviously that's kind of a cheating answer, but I could see RK going. Best athlete you've ever played with?
Pat Spencer. No, he was obviously amazing. He's 6'4", size 14 feet, and moves like he's 5'2". He moves with a kind of basketball fluidity, and his head is always up, and he's just confidence with the stick and stuff. And obviously, he's trying to make that NBA push now. NBA, that's what he's trying to do. So he's different. He's just on another level than anybody I've ever seen.
Best fighter or toughest guy you've ever played with?
Played with?
Yes.
Andrew Sear. Next question.
Yeah, I think most people would say that. Best dressing room DJ?
Danny Lomas. I know that's a popular answer right now around the Riptide community, but let's keep him doing it.
Most likely to become a WWE wrestler?
I only know one guy who likes the WWE, and that is you, Foxy. So I will say you grow out that beard a little bit, and I don't know. Can you get to 350 or something like that, and then start running around? You'd be a monster.
The next big show.
Exactly.
Finally, most likely to be a country music star? You have no prep for this one. This one was just added.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm wearing a camo hat right now. I think I could be doing pretty good, but
I'm wearing a camo hat too.
They got to have the face for it, right? It's not all about, unless you're Luke Combs, you got to come with the full package. So maybe Wags, keep it in the Riptide kind of thing going on. John Wagner, he's a well-dressed man, and he's got the face for it. Don't know if he can sing a lick, but
I remember his brother doing a little singing for the NLL one time. And
okay.
He, if they share it, maybe he can. Little brother duo.
There you go.
I think you don't have to keep your head up anymore for camp after throwing Suits under the bus, but then you save yourself with toughest player. So I think Suits will be happy with that one. So speaking of it, we did a lot of NLL talk here. We're gonna get into your NLL career here now. Can you take us back to draft day and kind of talk to us about what that day was like and what your nerves were like on that day?
Yeah, obviously I was nervous. It sounds silly now looking back at it and where I went, but you don't honestly know if you're ever going to even get drafted. I knew Vancouver is pretty interested, but everybody says everybody's interested, so you never really know. And luckily I went, and but it was just the best experience. Honestly, the best thing about that was seeing all my buddies that I played with growing up all kind of achieve what they wanted to. Again, Courier was there, and Wiz was there, and Shanks and Fennell, and all these guys I played with for so long. It honestly was really special watching them go. I got to do it with a couple of, or share it with a couple of the Ottawa guys, Keely and Finley. So that was pretty awesome to do it with them as well. And so yeah, it was quite the night, but just having everybody around made it kind of little bit smooth, a little bit easier, and a little bit more special.
We mentioned suitcase earlier. The only reason I bug you is because you call yourself it, or else I wouldn't say anything. But your first year, obviously drafted by Vancouver, end up playing, I think you played 6 or 7 games at the first half of the season. What was that jump like from the NLL, kind of getting used to the travel, getting used to, you were on the East Coast, having to fly out to Vancouver for games and stuff like that. Was it everything you dreamed of and more, or was it?
It was something, man. It was a great learning experience, to be honest. And the team, honestly, was full of great people. Beersy and Hawksby and all these guys. They really were amazing guys. I just think, the association wasn't going in the right direction, and jumping into a place that you're dealing with bigger, faster, stronger guys. The IQ of the game was crazy. How much more you need to know about the game, and making all that jump was a lot. And it was, we obviously didn't have the season we wanted as a team, and I wasn't doing amazing as a player either. And ended up leaving and getting picked up by Buff, which I ended up working out a little bit. But I think I only got 1 game in with Buff too. But I ended up meeting some more guys, and they had a pretty strong team. And meeting Priolo and Byrne was there, who was in my draft class and stuff like that. And Daner. So it was good. It ended up working out. I ended up going to New England after that, but where I ended up kind of finding my first home. But it was, you take something away from every experience, and there's no ill will to anybody. But you could kind of see where the association is going, man, and got out of there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens with pro, right? Once you get to the pro level, things sometimes don't work out. You end up different places, and you ended up in New England for your second season. From what you've told me, it was a hell of an experience, and you enjoyed it very much. What was that like, making that transition to a team? You developed yourself into an everyday player after your first year. Obviously, you got to play with Callum Crawford, who obviously has been big with you. So talk about that year with New England and how special it was for you.
Yeah, it was really awesome. The whole team, again, everyone says that your team's special and everyone's the camaraderie and whatnot, but it truly was. Like, I think that team has an amazing group of guys, and a lot of guys were kind of in the same position, young and hungry and learning, but they still had that core group behind us that we were able to find some success. And it was just a 360 from where I was before, with the direction and the attitude of the team. So it was nice to be there, and with that group of guys, it was awesome.
Then the off season comes around, and you were part of a pretty big trade that happened. Jordan Durston was selected by the Riptide, ends up getting traded for you and Miles Jones. What was your reaction to first hearing the trade? And I guess we'll start from there, coming to an expansion franchise.
Yeah, first reaction was that SportsCenter clip that I was on the bad end of was going to be all over Twitter again, and it was with Dirty making a one-on-one save on me on a breakaway, and Thurston is not a goalie. Let's just put that out there. So that was the first reaction. Then after that, honestly, I was a little bummed again leaving New England, because I was really truly happy there, and they had a great group, and I was excited to go on year 2 with them. But I was also excited for another opportunity in New York, and I think at an expansion team you have even more opportunities ahead of you. So I just try to make the most of it, and it ended up being awesome. Another good locker room, and got to meet Miles Jones.
You and Miles had a little. You basically covered him every time you played in college, right?
I covered him for 4 years. He did some damage against me, but I got him. I got the final laugh. So career points in a single game was put up against me, and then drawing him for the first game of the tournament again. But we ended up beating him that time, and that was his last college game. So that one felt pretty good.
What are your expectations? Obviously now, I was fortunate enough to be drafted by New York. We got to play together, which I think, honestly, although we're Ottawa guys, I think that was truly the first time we've played together, knowing each other since we were young. What are kind of now, a few more Ottawa guys. Nick Finley was recently traded to us. Obviously, the big news of Callum Crawford signing with us. what are kind of your expectations going forward with our squad and you personally as you develop into a veteran role now in the league?
And
Bador. Sorry, Carter.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm super pumped. I'm super pumped for the team. We've made some moves in the offseason that I think just makes us a little bit more solid from front end to back end. And again, I might be in my 4th year, but by no means is my spot locked. So I got to go in there and flying around and starting to get back to what I was doing, like scoring a little bit in transition and just being comfortable with where I am on defense now. I think I've concentrated on that the last 2 years. So now just let it flow and let it work for me. And I think as a team with everybody kind of gelling a year, we should all be able to do that. We'll all just be able to flow and go out and play and not worry about every single little detail. And I know that's important, but do that before the game. Once you're out on the field, just play. So I'm looking forward to that with this group that, hey, we got a little bit more experience. We've got a little bit more chem. Now we can just get out there and battle. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. And I think that's 5 Gloucester Griffins alumni with New York Riptide. So that's pretty cool for the Ottawa Area Lacrosse and especially Gloucester Minor Lacrosse Association.
Ottawa's team.
Yeah, the Ottawa Riptide. One thing I can say this, you guys are players, but if I was a younger guy on the team, I think I'd be bringing Rogaine for your coaching staff because they're all bald like me. Shout out to Laddie, Jonesy, and Cross. They're all beauties. And
it's going to be a shiny bench.
Yeah. The new Mr. Clean. You guys should be sponsored by Mr. Clean. So we're going to jump leagues here. We're going to go into your MLL career. You were undrafted. You had a very good NCAA career. Being undrafted, did that kind of motivate you to kind of work on your game and kind of give you some fuel or light a fire under you?
Yeah, to be honest, I always wanted to play, but concentration was with the NLL, and if that ended up happening, it was awesome. And if it didn't, it didn't. I just remember reading stuff online, and it was like, they were putting me up there in the top whatever to get drafted, and then it was just like, but too many question marks, like 5'8" from Canada. And I'm like, well, if that's their reasoning, then like they're probably not even going to import guys from Canada anyways to play. So it wasn't really disappointing, but once I got the chance to play, it was definitely motivating knowing that I was playing against guys who did get selected and were chosen to be there. And I was just kind of walking into tryouts, and Ty Thompson actually hooked me up with getting a tryout with Dallas when I was living here in Oklahoma. So that ended up working out, making team and whatnot. And it was a ton of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing it every year here on out with the Hammerheads because it really is a lot of fun, and competing is competing, right, against the top guys out there. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Speaking of Dallas, talk about that experience playing in Dallas. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys played in the Cowboys practice facility, right?
Yeah, we were at the Star. A really nice spot. The fans actually did come out. We got some pretty good attendance at those games, but it was nice just being able to drive to games. It was like a 3.5-hour commute for me, so I'd drive down and play and drive back, and it felt more like a true home game instead of even, in the having to travel and fly to everything you do. So it was really nice kind of being local.
Obviously, the MLL made some moves before this season. A lot of the teams that were located outside of the East Coast were relocated to the East Coast. And that included your Dallas team. Ended up moving to Connecticut Hammerheads. I know you weren't available for the tournament played this year. But what were your thoughts looking at this team? I know we watched a bunch of their games, and what were your thoughts about the team, and what are your hopes and expectations going forward, being able to be a part of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you look at the defense from that squad, that was like the biggest change from the year before with Dallas. I think we had 3 guys end up going to the Chrome, and they all started on the Chrome. So that was the biggest hole, but the group was basically the same for the most part, and they're just pesky. Last year we started off slow and ended up making a little bit of a run, and that's kind of what they ended up doing this year too, out in the little bubble tournament. So I don't know. I'm confident with the group, and we just need to not drop a couple games at the start and hit our stride a little earlier, and I'm looking forward to it.
So now, obviously, you are living in Oklahoma. It's been about 2 years. Talk about how you ended up getting here, and we'll get into Impulse after that.
Yeah, Croft got someone reached out to Croft through a friend of a friend of a friend of someone who was here, connected them with Cal, and he obviously is very adventurous and eager to do anything with the game and better himself and better lacrosse communities. And once he had this opportunity, he reached out and said, "Hey, would you even be interested?" And at first and whatnot. And I was just graduating college at that point, and I think I was a year out, and I didn't have really any plans, so I was all for it. Any time I get to make kind of a living off of this game and get to be around this game 24/7, it's a privilege. So I said yes, and ended up making the trip and the move down to big old Tulsa, Oklahoma.
You guys ended up starting a program, Impulse Lacrosse. What was it like? 'Cause I know Callum had experience. Callum started Ottawa Capitals with my dad in Ottawa. Again, taking a non-hotbed region and trying to turn them into, that team where you're sending kids to school and everything. You guys are just starting that. You're in year 2 here with Impulse in Oklahoma. What's it been like trying to convert the Sooner State, a football state, into a regional hotbed for lacrosse?
It's been fun and challenging all in the same. It's we have athletes down here. We have freak athletes down here that can run, jump, whatever with the best of them. But it's the stick, and honestly, it's just encouraging the X's and O's and things like that in practice. You can catch them if they're willing to learn. If you run the right practices and if you concentrate on the right things, those things will come. But it's truly getting them to understand that kind of connection with your stick and just always having it around, leaving one in each room. So no matter where you are, you can pick one up and cradle while you're brushing your teeth and things like that. Just that connection with the stick is removed because in a football state, it's hands, ball, and it's so natural for a lot of guys, whereas in lacrosse is obviously is so unnatural to anything else you do. So you have to kind of live with that stick, and that's kind of what we've been preaching to a lot of our players, because once those hands catch up, and once everyone's connection with their stick kind of gets on par with everybody else, everyone should watch out, because we have horses down here, absolute horses.
I guess that kind of goes into my next question of what gets you the most excited thinking about the future of Oklahoma lacrosse?
I'm just, excited to see these kids succeed in something that I don't think a lot of them thought was going to be possible. We have some guys reaching some pretty crazy heights right now with school, and we're only in year 2. So the youngest groups that we're working with, right, all the way down to, I think, 5th grade, I'm just so excited to see kind of where they develop and they get a full kind of life or minor career with, encouragement and I don't want to say proper coaching, but because I don't want to slight anybody that was here before, but coaching and guiding them in the right way to have that success on the tail end of their career. So I'm just super excited to see where they can go with it. A lot of guys, obviously, if they're not the biggest, strongest, fastest player in not only their high school, but in their region, then they don't think they have a career in sports because football is just not it for them. And it kind of opens those doors for, everybody. So I'm super excited to see these kids kind of just succeed and move on and do great things.
All right, let's hear it. Name some players that you're excited to see from the area at the next level or in the future that you think could. I know it's hard. You have a bunch of kids.
Yeah, we got a ton of kids. So sorry, boys, if you hear this and I don't shout you out. But I'll just throw out one special name because he is already committed, and we have some guys going out this year. But he's a 21, so I still have him for another season. But he's committed to University of Albany. His name's Trey Goins. He's like 6'3", he runs like a 4.5 or 4.4 something, and he's changed the direction. He's honestly, to Pat Spencer, his lacrosse is nowhere near that yet, but to Pat Spencer as in the build, the change of direction, the speed, the aggressiveness, all that is on par, and that's what I'm excited to see. These guys that will go from being top football players in the state, successful lacrosse, and then when they're at school, they are forced to play lacrosse every single day. And his growth from day 1 on campus to his last day when he leaves Albany is going to be greater than anybody else who goes to that school. So people like that with that natural gift and ability, I'm just looking forward to seeing where his ceiling lies once he gets down there with Coach Mark.
Yeah, no, certainly. And it's definitely exciting. And I think lacrosse is definitely the game of the future in the United States with the way everything's going now. in 2020. So it's definitely exciting to see, and I'm sure you guys are all very excited to see how well your young guys develop over the years. So we're going to get into our play until a whistle segment here. You grew up around a lot of lacrosse, Ryan. I'm going to ask you, who is your favorite referee growing up and why?
I would say Garrison. I'll say Garrison because
you can't think of any.
To be honest, I was over here freaking out. Like, I don't know a single ref's name. Like, I was never really close with them. But honestly, I refed, and I believe I was the only ref to get a complaint the entire year, and I got 2 of them. I was not good at it, and it tells me how hard it is. So I truly do feel for the refs, and I do appreciate what they do. And I say Garrison for the fact that he's probably the ref I remember the most from my first day in lacrosse, and he's committed so long to the sport, and he's not the one getting, the limelight and the accolades and all this attention like the superstars of the game are, but he's been doing it and helping us be able to do it for so long. So that commitment to, the refereeing and whatnot is pretty cool. So I'll shout out him for all he's done for so long.
I'll also just say, Ian, I was joking there, by the way. I think you're a fantastic ref. But honestly, again, what Ian coaches high school lacrosse. Like, he does so much for the game. He was my referee in chief back when I started refereeing. I think we've probably both had him since we were about 8 or 9. Like, he's always been a ref that we've been around. So I'm glad you could think of someone though.
Yeah, Ryan, you made a good point there. You said he's helped us as players out a lot, and I kind of love how you said that. And I mean, without refs, we don't have a game. So the last question I'll ask you is, what do you think we could do as players to kind of help limit the abuse towards the officials in the game of lacrosse?
I just think know your role, right? Like, everybody's got a job out there. Coaches are there to coach. You're there to play, and the refs are there to ref. So I'm talking out both ends here because I know in the heat of the game, it's not as easy just to kind of shut your mouth and walk away. But to know your roles, and I put it a lot on the coaches, because if a coach is going crazy and yelling and getting his guys all riled up, obviously the guys are going to do that as well. But if you run a strict bench and you put your team in line and the way you want it conducted, then they shouldn't be bad talking the refs in the middle of the game and stuff. So it's just know your roles, know your job is to play the game as a player, know as a coach your job is to manage those players, and then that makes the experience for the ref and his job easier. If he's not worrying about making every single perfect call because he's not going to hear it from everybody else, then he's going to be doing a better job. So that would be my advice, is just, hey, you're not all there to call the games. The guys in the stripes are, and just kind of let them do their thing, and without all that harassment, they're going to do a better job.
Yeah, exactly. And I think letting the refs be the officials of the game and kind of letting the players do their job. I think that we each have our own jobs to do on the floor and on the field. So I think that's a great point again. So, Ryan, we appreciate you coming on here talking with us. Wish you the best of luck this year in your upcoming NLL season, everything with Impulse Lacrosse and your future MLL lacrosse career as well. So it's exciting to see you doing so well, and especially the growth of the game in the Ottawa area, and you were a huge part of that. So thanks again for coming on and talking to us.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Torpedo.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Sticks and Picks Lacrosse Podcast presented by Lacrosse Unlimited. Don't forget to check out their website at lacrosseunlimited.com for all your lacrosse needs. A big thank you to True Lacrosse for their continued support in growing the game of lacrosse through our podcast. True Lacrosse provides lacrosse athletes with top-of-the-line equipment and sticks in today's game. Follow us on our social media pages on Twitter and Instagram at SticksPicksLax and on Facebook at Sticks and Picks Lacrosse for more lacrosse content, future episode releases, and some awesome lacrosse giveaways. We are currently giving away another True Comp SF 4.0 shaft. Head over to our Instagram page for more details. Every Thursday night, you can watch Major Series lacrosse games on Facebook for free, and you can also enter the 50-50 contest to win some cash.